Hello, friends. Welcome to Worldbuild with us, the podcast where we create fantastical worlds with help from you, our listeners. My name is Rob Hilferty, and I'm here with tantalizingly turgid Chris Prunty. On today's episode, we continue our deep dive into the Bank of Death, paying attention to geography, points of interest, and aspects of the capital city. Daniel will again be missing out on this episode. He is still in London for some reason. Like, Daniel, I mean, come on, get over it. It's just one city.
Yeah, you need to exit.
Through the gift shop?
Oh, no, I was going for a Brexit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm dumb. I missed that.
Yeah.
That's on
No,
me.
it's okay. No, I didn't do a good enough job.
Yeah, you should have just mentioned like Jeremy Corbyn or, Boris, and that would have been fine. All right, so let's start off with geography. We mentioned a little bit last episode that it is that the land of the Bank of Death is a little bit not great because, it's essentially a resource-starved country, and the cities themselves are kind of bastions of, just wealth in terms of
affluence.
In terms of affluence, in terms of this is what money can do. And I actually missed a parallel that I think is fairly appropriate, which is Dubai. Yes. I mean, like oil aside, no one wants to live in the deserts, right? Like that's kind of not given the choice. Would you go to Scottsdale, Arizona, or okay, you like Arizona. Maybe that's not.
Arizona's nice.
Yeah,
it's so warm.
Right. Bad example. Anyway, so yeah, I think Dubai is actually a fairly appropriate parallel that we can draw. However, what I wanted to kind of focus on here as well is the idea that yes, around this area, particularly or around the cities, particularly dangerous for people to be. We mentioned in the Wilds episode that the further away from civilization you get, the more warped and the more chaotic it becomes. Mm-hmm. I actually want to highlight that in the Bank of the Dead. I want the Wilds in the Bank of the Dead to this is where it gets really, really bad for whatever reason.
Wars between the different lords of death or whatever, the Capulet.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking about the cities themselves. I was thinking about maybe just straight up mutants. Maybe just straight up this is where the more monstrous things live is in the wilds of the Bank of Death.
Now, just to go over arid desert.
Yes, I'm not thinking of a tundra, like an ice desert or anything like that. I would not even necessarily a desert. I was thinking maybe more like Badlands more than anything else. But that's kind of the idea that I had. Maybe a mixture of both.
Like Death Valley.
Oh, no.
What? Oh, I didn't even mean to do that. That was...
You didn't? Really?
No, 100%, and that's what I love.
Uh-huh. All right.
Oh.
Well,
we're talking about
anyway.
Arizona, just segued in.
Yeah, great segue. So my point being, right, my geographical point of interest is something that was inspired by Dubai and a little bit of Salton Sea, where it's a man-made lake. So what ended up happening is there, however many years ago, a principality, a nation state, what have you, defaulted on their loans. And beforehand, they put up, the Bank of Death was like, hey, put up that beautiful natural lake as collateral and we'll take your loan. No problem. They default and they took the deal not thinking they're not going to take a lake. How are they going to take a lake? Right. So they default on the loan. And then, of course, who do you call? Who do you hire who are so good at moving water sources and who are so good at logistical problems like that? They talked to Hondasa and they managed to uproot and move an entire lake and plopped it in one of their cities. I'm not saying necessarily the capital, but the God Pacted that performed the deal now has an entire, I'm thinking not just a little it's a little puddle. No. I'm talking a
Central Park worth of water.
More, actually. I was thinking maybe Lake Erie, that big.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That level of kind of movement, because now it's Like, that doesn't belong there. But man, it's cool that we have that. And that shows the power that money has. You know, like, yeah, we have enough money to take your literal national resources and they're mine now. Like, that's how powerful this bank is. And that's the influence that I wanted to convey.
Just to touch on it, is it kind of like a natural lake that formed out, like they plopped out the water, or is it kind of more like the reflecting pool of in Washington D.C. of where it has like stone and it's octagonal or something?
I think there's
unnatural shape.
I think that they wanted to keep the natural beauty of it. You know, like this God Pack probably is like, wow, I really like that beautiful lake a lot. I wish I had that closer to my home. And so they literally, like a supervillain, like a Saturday morning supervillain, they're just like picked it up and dropped it up. They Control C, Control V, and then bam, now it's in my city. That lake is mine.
Just a little house out on the lake.
Oh man.
It's just like that. It's just like, no, but also put my house there. I want that as the other thing.
Can you imagine being so rich that you're just like, you know, I really want a lake view, and then you can just buy a lake rather than having to move somewhere else?
Richie rich level.
Exactly. And I know it sounds cartoonish, but like that type of thing. And I draw from historical context where there were, you know, like there's places out in California that they basically rerouted water sources to create lake villages, like Salton Sea. Which is really a really fascinating case. There is essentially like they were moving a giant water source and it broke. And so there was a lake town, and speculation was, oh, that's going to be a new resort town. And that's going to be what's going to happen. And so they built up all these hotels, and then it turns out that the water was incredibly toxic, to the point where like, and then it also dried up. So what happened is all of the fish that they put in the pond are all now dead. And there's an entire like giant area of just powdered like fish bones and derelict abandoned hotels. So
I think I've seen pictures of this.
Yes, I'm almost certain you have. My wife went out there when we went out to California a couple years ago, and it was
my wife.
Yeah, my wife. So there's historical context for something like that happening. And when you have enough, I mean, like, look at the engineering feats of the ancient world as we see them now.
You go big.
Right, exactly. And I mean, even the Romans, like, they created, you know, I think it's Tyre or Tyre.
Tyre sounds right.
Yeah, probably. But that was once an island, and then to invade it, they literally created enough land to get there. And like, that's the thing, like, all they had back then was people and manpower and time. Because what are they going to do? Like, people aren't going to be playing Dungeons and Dragons back then, or like going looking at cats on the internet. No, like, what are you going to want to do for 12 hours of our waking day? I'm like, I don't know.
Shovel.
Let's go shovel. Hey, that sounds fulfilling. So that's my historical precedent for it, that this stuff can happen as long as you have the money and the manpower to do it. And I think that when we're talking about the Bank of Death, of course they're going to have the money and the manpower to do it. Like, I think it makes sense. So, and not only that, I love the idea that these are basically just like multi-billionaire oligarchs just making shit happen.
Especially for their own fancy, where they're just
exactly.
Like, I should buy a lake.
Yeah, it's that image. I should buy a boat, but it's like a lake instead. Yeah,
that's what you got to do when you're unimaginably wealthy.
Yes,
and immortal.
Right?
Because I can wait.
You're just going to be bored, right? So, Chris, that's my geographical location. What was yours? What do you got for us loaded in the chamber?
So, wow, I don't have as much history or behind mine. I really just wanted to do a cave with big ass crystals. Have you ever seen those crystal caves? You kind of make it feel foolish now. You do know the caves that I'm talking about, like in South America, where it's like crystals the size of like buildings and everything.
I'm just thinking of Professor Dinosaur now from Atomic Robo.
Crystals.
Yeah, exactly.
Making the science with crystals.
All right. So let's kind of flush out these caves a little bit more.
It was mainly based on the fact that we were doing something with sinkholes and everything, so I wanted there to be something of like a cave system. And I was going to tie this back into more stuff in a little bit, but that'll be covered in the point of interest section.
Well, why don't you transition into that once you're done explaining?
Oh, so I forget the name of it, but the South American caves that have the huge ass quartz crystals.
Yes, I do know what you're talking about, but much like Chinampas, I'm drawing a blank right now.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, just like, I haven't mispronounced anything yet, so...
Not yet.
Yeah, I'm staying away from that right now.
Yeah. I'll make sure to highlight it and loop it when you actually do.
I couldn't think of anything beyond, like, fancy glassware or anything that people made quartz of. Quartz of is kind of like gold. It's very hard, but it's...
Brittle.
Yeah.
It's like what's it? Obsidian. Obsidian is one of the sharpest things on Earth, but it's one of those things where it's super brittle, so it just cracks, and that's why we don't use it for weapons unless you're, Aztec. But yeah.
But I mean, and even then, you're just like, oh, what's this strong ass piece of wood? What if I hammer this sharp but brittle thing into this strong and hard thing? Okay, made it weird. But I was thinking that maybe this particular type of quartz or something about it isn't necessarily magical, but unique. And the reason it would help to be unique is I wanted it to be involved in the money, in the minting of either coins or something, of where a little shard of this crystal gets put into the money. And the fact that it has unique properties, maybe it fucking glows. Maybe it's a certain color of crystal that you can't really find elsewhere. But one, it makes it very hard to duplicate.
Yeah.
And two, I wanted currency of the Bank of Death to be like, just like, oh wow, he's paying one of those coins. That's
yeah, like it shows that you have more money than the traditional. Because I imagine that it's like a silver trade for the most part. Like gold is one of those things that you see like pretty rarely. It's like $100 bill.
Yeah.
Like they exist, but like people don't really use them. For the most part, if you're dealing with cash, you're doing 20s, right?
Yeah, and you can break in the money system based a little bit on how much of the quartz is put into the coin, or also how it's cut. Because you could have it be like, oh, that looks like one thin flake. That is the lowest domination. You could have it be where it's one of those emerald cuts. I forget what it's called, but like comes into like a rectangle-like shape, almost a square. You know what I'm talking about? Think of a big pile of treasure, and when you go just like, that's a ruby, that's an emerald, that's a sapphire. They all, for some reason, usually get like a unique shape. Like the diamond shape can be cut into the same shape as like any other piece of, but you put it into the diamond shape because it shows its clarity and all of that shit.
So for me, when I think of the different gems and everything like that, my brain again just goes to Magic because that's just how it works. In Magic the Gathering.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Where it's the Mox Emerald is in fact a rectangular shape, Mox Ruby and Mox Sapphire and Mox, all the Moxes have specific shapes. And so when you say ruby, my brain, instead of picturing like a ruby, it pictures the specific Mox Ruby art.
Yeah.
Which just shows like how deeply ingrained that game is in my head.
But that's also what I mean. Like when I think of emeralds, I think of a particular shape. And I think it might have been from the movie Return to Oz. And I don't know why.
Well, yeah, that's fair. So the idea is, right? All right. So this is what I'm thinking. So a Bank of Death, currency, a coin, right? Is a circle with a square in the middle that is empty. And then you can then put in your quartz right there. But it has to be like forged a specific way. So it's like lodged in there as opposed to where it's just added on later.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that might be part of the fun when it comes to creating forgeries is you're going to have people who are doing it the cheap way where they're basically just creating they're going to jam it in there.
Yeah.
They're jamming like glass into that type of thing. Speaking of, maybe what's interesting about the quartz is the way that it refracts light, or maybe it's something like that. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Originally, I was coming across the 3 Parts Dead series where people had to put soul stuff into coins in order to trade it, but that gets really close to that sci-fi trope and thing of where people are just like, oh, he's gambling time or putting his soul into it.
I really want to avoid that if possible.
I mean, I do like the fact of a craftsman putting his blood, sweat, and tears into things, but I I don't know. I was thinking at most maybe it has some weird natural property, like it comes off with a ethereal like glint. But then I was just like, ethereal, dead. Do I want to play too
Oh.
much on that?
Do you maybe part of it is I don't know why I'm thinking of this, because it's not we're not getting into like, oh, he's putting his essence into it, but like maybe something about the quartz, you can bleed into it and it'll just bleed. It'll actually act like water. So you like drop a little drop of water or blood into it and it just soaks through, and you can see the splash and everything like that, but it stays there. So when you say blood is actually in the quartz itself, I think that'd be kind of a cool idea, because every droplet is going to be fairly unique, right? Or it's going to be distinct, I suppose, not unique. And I think that gives that a little bit more. I think that's a little bit more interesting. But then, of course, it doesn't. It's not like a snow globe where you can shake it. It's like, no, at the time of forging, blood is put into it, and bam, you see it, and that's what it is.
Oh, and like a forgery would have it where it's just like, wait a minute, that's painted on.
Exactly.
What the hell are you
Right.
doing?
And it's hard to kind of get that distinct blood-shaped pattern and everything like that. And so
You get that moment of where a shopkeeper can like put it in his mouth and like instead of biting it, he licks it and goes like, ew, gross.
yeah, or even like the way to verify it is to bleed on it again or something like that. There's something to it where you can kind of test.
Oh, now I'm getting a weird like John Wick vibe of that coin that he had to cut himself on.
Oh yeah. Well, I haven't seen John Wick. Any of them. I know.
I wish Daniel was here.
Daniel, I don't think Daniel's seen John Wick.
I know, but I
either.
want to
In
know his
fact,
opinion.
I would put money on the fact that Daniel hasn't seen John Wick.
What if it's one of the movies he's seen and he hates it? You don't even have an opinion to draw from this.
Yeah, no, I don't. But I know the coin you're talking about because I've seen clips.
It's pretty cool.
YouTube does that, where I can feel informed, but still having not seen the movie.
All hail the algorithm.
Yes, the algorithm. All hail.
All right.
So you said that your geographical stuff, aka the quartz that we're talking about, that's abundant in these lands, apparently, right?
Yeah.
Or at least there's a giant cave system with
Yes,
it, right? Okay.
like cave system with giant quartz.
Oh, yes. Okay, so you said that it had something to do with your point of interest. What is your point of interest,
The
sir?
point of interest was the mint of the Bank of Death, where they forge the coins, where they make them.
Yes.
And I did want it to be somewhat close to it, because going back to the what is known about that cave is it is pretty deep underground, and we're getting into a territory that I know that you hate,
Go on.
where things are underground. People enjoy forges. People forge things underground, perhaps using some sort of magma tube.
So far, nothing wrong, except maybe magma tube. I think that might be a little far-fetched.
You're right, lava tube.
Still a little bit far-fetched.
Okay.
But whatever. We're talking about a magical system here, so it's fine,
And yeah, I just want it to be like part of the thing that makes it secure is you have to go pretty deep to find this crystal.
Oh, okay. I can kind of get into that.
So it plays the rarity of it, the fact of it has to go down there, and I was thinking of wherever it is, it's a literal sweatshop of people like working to make these coins because you were put down there. It takes time to get down there. The resources are made into you almost living there in, granted, hellish conditions, but
you get paid remarkably well.
And people do their stints in the quartz.
I'm getting like a Fort Knox vibe, where but also the fact that I like the idea in some cases that you don't know, or it's the location is kind of a secret, where it's like, yes, we have a mint / forge / quartz factory that is around here somewhere, but to prevent, attempted theft and robbery and, it's obviously an incredibly valuable area. They have there's no distinct area. There's no, or something like that,
And I'm assuming that for the most part, they go to wherever the crystals are. So over time, it moves, granted at a snail-like pace.
Yes. And what I'm also thinking is, of course, they're, to protect it, they're going to add little false, tunnels and areas and stuff like that. And who knows, maybe if you're greedy enough, you stumble into a place that you're sure is the forge, only to find out that it's just like it's swarming with mummies and stuff like that.
Oh, they put something else down here.
Yeah, exactly. And so
Or even someone who's just like adventurous spelunking, and they're just like, we're gonna get some of these quartz to make some forgeries, and they're like, is that a building?
Can we have the building move? Because I like the idea that it is at least in some way mobile, right?
So what's moving? Is it by magical means?
I'm thinking it's like a palanquin type situation where they literally physically lift it. Obviously, you're going to take hundreds, if not thousands, or you can just put it on wheels, like whatever.
I guess you could put it on wheels.
I was thinking kind of like, how the Russians in World War II, how they would literally ship factories brick by brick because they're from retreating from the front lines as Hitler came, something like that. But maybe it'd be more fun if it was, like they're physically lifting this giant, thing and moving it.
I mean, they have time on their side, of course. You could literally, as you mine out crystal, like put down the tracks that they then pull.
Oh, kind of like, that's actually kind of interesting. Like put it on a rail system. Okay, I can support that. That sounds fun.
Not so much like, not to get into, we're not in the Industrial Revolution.
No.
But I feel like rails would somehow be preferable. Like a wheel and a spoke for it is not that hard to imagine.
Oh, yeah. No, I can see that for sure. And I mean, of course, because minecarts existed. Yeah, well, I think that like the first minecarts were built around the 1500s, which does kind of sync up with the timeline that we have involved. Mm-hmm. So that's, I don't know. I think that works pretty well. We can at least have the rail system going,
Yeah. Early laying the tracks.
Oh, we're never recording this podcast again.
All right. So that's my point of interest.
Okay.
What was yours?
Mine's a little different because I kept thinking about
A sex shop.
That might be interesting, but no, not now. I kept thinking about the fact that there were once 10 God Pact, right? And now we're down to 6, maybe 5, depending on how it works out. So I kept thinking about the God Pacted and how we went from 10, now we're down to 6. And I kind of came up with the idea that there is an abandoned city, or not an abandoned, but like it is. I think you mentioned this way back in the Handasa episode. It's so-and-so's folly, where it is a city or some kind of a ruin of a city that has just been demolished and salted and essentially sunk into the tar pits, where you see like spires poking up of the, from this massive waste of tar. And that's what I want. I want what is essentially a massive haunted wasteland of an ancient city that no longer exists because one of the God Pacted, maybe this is like the one and only time war has broken out, open war has broken out between the God Pacted, and it was such a disaster that they cursed this land entirely. And then this city, which was once his pride, is now, it's something that the locals point to and be like, you don't want to go there. Like,
it's a haunted place.
No. I know you're an adventurer. I know you think you can handle it. You cannot handle this place. That's like everything about it is deadly and dangerous and fucking scary. That's what I want to go with.
I like going back to what you said earlier about like mutants in the waste, and I really like, as you know, like wastelands, ruins, post-apocalyptic kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I do like this ruined city, the weird doom that came to Valeria kind of feel that it has. Smoking ruins.
I have an idea that I was just, okay, hold on. What if this is where the first mummy was born, and that mummy was one of the God Pacted of the dead? So he still rules that city, but he's like trapped inside essentially. And it is one of those, like, he's basically, if you want to talk about big, bad, evil liches, he is the archetype that we can point to.
So is he? So you say he's trapped there?
Sure. I haven't really thought
it's
it
not-
out too much because, I just literally thought of this as we were speaking.
No, I'm just trying.
But there's something terrifying about the idea that he's stuck. And maybe that's the thing. Maybe like just the spires poke out and there's an entire city underneath.
like an under tar adventure.
Yeah.
Like underwater adventure is bad enough, but under tar, you're not
tar.
gonna. Wait, you wouldn't be able to see. But
No.
that's also
That's like underground plus underwater, and also burning alive the entire time. But something about that concept where it's like a submerged city under tar, and like maybe living people just can't go there, right? Like think about it that way. Can you imagine like even if you get inside a building, there's no air, or if it's air, then you're sweltering. Like it's so hot from all of the hot, like the geothermal like energy. I don't know. There's something there. I'm sticking with that concept.
Yeah, I also like the concept of they didn't kill him
Yes.
and left him to rule over the ashes of
Maybe he's just broken. Maybe he's
like
just,
a mad king kind of thing.
yeah, but he's like not even a full person anymore. Maybe they like kind of like cleaved into him and then just left him kind of like he'll be fine. But like he's essentially just like a head in a jar, or maybe just a torso or something
We
like
actually
that.
spoke about this, about how the god pacted of the god of death, they kind of can resurrect themselves. They don't die. What if
I thought it was just that they don't die. I don't think it was they can resurrect themselves.
Well,
That's a different god.
I get that, but it was more of the fact that they don't die, and if you don't die, but they're ageless, correct?
Yes.
And did we go over that they can die from bodily harm?
Yeah, I thought that was established that they cannot die natural deaths.
But if you can't die a natural death, but from bodily harm, how far can you take it?
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that like maybe there's a sword that got cleaved through his skull, and he's missing like whatever chunk of his brain makes part of him go. But I don't know. There's something there. I think there's something
But
there.
something either from different magics or relics that he had, he is somehow just keep on ticking.
Yeah, I think.
But not quite the same.
Right. I think we have to come back to that. I think that. Oh, you know what we
That
should
could
do?
Yeah, we said we were going to do like famous people and NPCs. That would be a...
Yeah. Well, no, we should
Not
also do
NPCs.
dungeons, right? Or like individual adventure sites where we take an idea and then we mine it all the way through. Yeah, no pun intended. Yeah.
Hey.
No, but like doing something like that, I think that'd be a really. Let us know, guys, if you think that that's a really cool idea that you want us to kind of focus on in a future episode. Let us know by sending an email to us. Obviously, we're here at worldbuildwithus@gmail.com.
Well, I think one of the feedbacks that we got from our last Reddit thing was people asking a little bit about the process or like tools that we use. So maybe while we're discussing that, we would be like, this is how we layer out our dungeon.
Yeah. And yeah, my dungeons always, or at least often, begin with a very specific concept, and then I kind of go out from there. Like, for example, I'm building a dungeon right now, which is you will probably face at some point.
Go on.
But it is, my original idea was the Temple of Doom. Okay, cool. Let's go from there and then like kind of break down elements and see what works and how we can kind of like maneuver it and make it work and what have you. But
I always saw those stones in a Temple of Doom that were the people's hearts as just loaves of bread.
really?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. They look to me like ideal sub bread.
I guess.
I don't know.
Although I think that your ideal of subbread differs from mine because you're clearly going for like some kind of submarine sandwich.
Yeah, that's what I'm going for.
Yeah, no, I'm not there. I'm not there. I always like honestly, one of my favorite sandwich breads ever, focaccia bread. Focaccia bread is like easily one of, especially when it's fresh and homemade.
No. I want my cartoonish olive on top.
You want Dagwood. You want a Dagwood sandwich where there's like 4 layers in between somehow. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Anyhow.
Okay. Yeah.
Segue.
All right. So yeah, that's my point. That's my point of interest is a so-and-so's folly that is a semi-submerged or an entirely submerged city under tar that is indicative of why the God Pact of Death should not fight each other. That's the idea.
Yeah. I also, going back to boss log and things like the torque bomb, I like shit's weird. Like,
Yes.
that's also the epicenter of the weird in there.
Right. Yeah, I'm with it. I'm right there with you. Like, yeah, you don't. That's where a lot of really chaotic, weird. Maybe that's actually what causes the increased chaotic energy from that kind of disrupts, the axiomatic aspect of
if the God Pact
civilization.
weren't there and everything, civilization, the weirdness would also be there, but they are the bastion cities.
Yeah. Okay. So like maybe there's some kind of weird half and half where it's like there should be an anchoring point of civilization here, but it's been destroyed and corrupted, and so now you have the chaos of the chaos of the wilds mixed with a city, like a city itself. So you get a cool, like awful, you get the worst of both worlds type thing.
Yeah. So, well,
yeah, sorry. I accidentally elbowed it.
Yeah. I most certainly like waste. I also would love for little things to be out there of like going over into the ghost towns of other areas. Like, clearly maybe people could live out in the waste before things happen, but now there's all these like little way stations and things that have been abandoned forever, which I like to think that they build a lot of stuff to last.
Oh, for sure.
Because
can you imagine also being like this used to be a trade post between these two cities, but now that city is gone, but they're not going to abandon it. So you're kind of sitting there just being like, all right, I guess we're kind of the last stop on the road here, but we're not trading with anyone. So it's this kind of terrible, desolate, like wasteland town. I feel like that's where you get weird, like Wild West stories that happen, where it's like, oh yeah, that city's basically been, or that outpost has basically been abandoned by the government. So that's where you get like, little governmental tyrannical despots and stuff like that. That if the government ever actually turned its eye toward them, they'd be fucked. But because it's,
they're not going to spend the time and resources and, quite frankly, allowing them to police themselves have saved them resources.
Exactly.
They're just like if we're sending something through, they're not going to fuck with it because they know not to shit where effectively they're eating.
Cost benefit analysis suggests that, like let a despot rule. Who cares? No, we don't care about that shit. Okay, now I like the fact that there's Wild West shit in here. I'm totally down with this. All right, cool. Okay, getting away from the outskirts of the Bank of Death, let's go ahead and focus on the heart, which is the capital.
Now, I believe that we mentioned that the capital is not owned by anyone.
One of the god, but yeah, I think that it's...
They're all vying for control, and they're fighting over the streets.
Yeah, one of my favorite aspects that we kind of talked about last episode was they're not fighting over street by street, but like little
shops,
little shop cart by shop cart, like window per window is what they're fighting for when it comes to area and territory. I like that a lot. I think that franchises are kind of a big deal. I think that's really fun. And I do want to keep that kind of spirit going where there's almost a Gangs of New York style, territory being divided, and it's not super safe for you to go, if you're in the Dead Rabbits, you don't go in the other person's territory.
I wouldn't mind there being some sort of not quite gang affiliation of the people, but I forget the name of the comedian, but he talked about how when he went to Russia,
you're talking about
The Machine.
The Machine, yeah.
The Machine.
Oh my god, yeah.
About it, just like no, we don't worry, we paid off the mob. You're going to be taken well care of. And then when they send him off to another place, just like no, my mafia doesn't own that area, but don't worry, I put in a good word for you. You're going to be fine.
Yeah.
Like, I assume that there is some peace between them, like overarching. There is kind of this fight going on.
Yes,
but it's all about greasing palms in the right way.
I'm okay with that, and that kind of reinforces the idea of the shadow war that we had going on, where it's considered impolite to just give people money and resources, And so I think in the same way, there can't be open warfare a la, Gangs of New York, but I think that there is some kind of an affiliation with your particular God pact, right?
Here's the thing: giving money to defeat your enemy is one thing, but having people who are like visiting your city and being just like, hey, we wanted to enjoy ourselves in town. How much is that going to cost us? Oh, are you going to be on these streets? Yeah, that'll be about that. But if you leave those streets, you're fucked. So you're going to want to pay those guys.
Okay, this is going to sound ridiculous, but bear with me here.
Insurance policies.
I like that. I like that. But no, hold on. This is going to sound so dumb. I can't wait to unload this on you. Each area that's controlled by the God Pacted is basically like a different area in Disney World. There's Epcot, Animal Kingdom, MGM.
I did want there to be districts, but
I know it's so dumb. It's so dumb, but there's something about it that fits just right. I think that, yeah.
I'm really getting a weird Warriors feel meets Disneyland now.
Well, that already happened in Disneyland. Do you not know about this? There are gangs in Disneyland, and they claim certain rides.
What?
Oh, yeah. That's a thing. That's a thing.
Disneyland has gangs?
Disneyland has gangs that wear jackets. They wear jackets, and they're like Haunted Mansion hooligans or whatever the fuck they're called. I don't remember. They're actually a thing.
Who are they? How can they afford to go to Disneyland so often?
I think there's monthly passes, right?
Yeah, but it's just... wow, that is...
I swear it's a thing. Go look it up later. I'm sure other people can back me up here as well. But it's a thing.
Of all the places to have gangs.
They're actually the most polite gangs, though, to be fair. It's not like they're like roughing old people up. It's like, hey, don't cut the line. That type of shit.
So they're kind of like the guardian angels who went on the subways and you're like, hey.
Kinda.
Don't be dicks.
Yeah, but also they just enjoy the ride a lot,
Weird.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
weird.
What do you want? It's a social club. How else are you going to go out and meet new people? Just hang out at Disneyland. And it's Disneyland specifically in California, not Disney World.
I'm still confused because I just feel like Disney should step in and stop the gangs. Not something I thought I would have to say. I mean, they're so militant about any litter or anything. You think that they'd be like, no, they keep the peace.
Yeah, no, but think about it, right? Like, they're return customers in groups. They're the ideal customer. And they make sure that people don't act like dickheads. Although, from what I understand, there have been rumbles and scuffle-ups that have happened that Disney did have to actually step in.
Scuffle-ups?
Yes, scuffle-ups. I just made that up. I don't fucking know.
No, it's somehow what I picture a fight in Disney being described as.
It's a ballyhoo, I tell ya. Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah. All right. We're getting way off. Yeah, we're getting way off topic here. Let's talk a little bit more about the Capitol, because the thing that I had in mind was, you know what? I'm going to abandon my idea because I like this way more. I now want there to be like gangs. Polite gangs. That's what I'm going for. It's not like, no, those gangs were not polite.
I know, but listen, we've already said that there's lots of theater. I'm sorry. I want some singing and dance. No, that's too ridiculous.
Oh no, that could totally be happening. Like, you stop snapping. It's bad for the microphones. It's bad for the listeners.
It's not hurting them.
It's not hurting them, but it certainly isn't helping them.
Jazz hands.
Yeah, you can't see those. That's
That's why I said jazz hands.
Anyway, my point being, right? I want there to be some kind of polite gang system in the capital. Other cities, maybe there's a little bit more knifey in the guts type thing.
Those are affiliate gangs.
Right.
And we do not claim any connection to the affiliated gangs.
Even though they're sending them money and resources. Yeah. Because it's like, maybe this is it. Maybe all of that open warfare shit only applies to the capital. Maybe you can be as vicious and brutal anywhere else within reason. I think open war is not a good idea, but maybe like active violence.
Beat the shit out of someone behind closed doors.
Exactly. Or even openly. Like maybe the other cities in the Bank of Death are much like Gangs of New York, where there's just like, hey, there's a melee happening. There's like dudes with a shillelagh and hatchets just fucking going at each other, but not in the capital. The capital is different. There's civility and there's rule in the capital. That kind of thing.
Where fights are more like duels than
Maybe not even necessarily duels, but like
scuffle-butts or whatever the fuck you just said.
I said scuffle ups, sir.
Scuffle-ups.
God damn it. Anyway, my point being that maybe it's like maybe they send like bards and theater troops up across different areas to be like, that person sucks. Like that's the kind of, actually, this is something that came up in a documentary I watched on the Night Watch. The Night Watch is a famous, really beautiful
a movie and a book called Night Watch.
No. It's a painting by Vermeer. He's a Dutch master. It's massive, and it breaks down. I think it's like 42 different points that are all messages within the Night's Watch itself, which is fascinating, right? So the idea is that these were political statements. Whenever artwork was revealed back then, there were often hidden messages that were slights and, aimed at certain families and whatnot. And they had messages in them. And us as modern people, we don't understand that as much unless you're like an art historian. But that's the idea, is that maybe this is how warfare works in the capital. It's not through shanking you in the guts in the dark in an alley.
It's by putting up a beautiful mural.
It's about putting up the best artwork. It's about putting up the best theater troupe that's going to insult your enemies. Like, that's how influence is kind of gained and fought and won over in the capital. Yeah.
I could also see, like, to an outsider, they'd be like, "Oh, it's so beautiful here, and
Right.
everything's going on." It was just, and that's the outside populace that they're trying to gain the popularity of.
Yeah, and then to the locals, they're like, "Oh, shit is really tense right now. Did you know?" And like, meanwhile, a tourist is like, "Wow, both of those operas last night were amazing." And then there's like scandalous like news sheets going on about like, "Did you see that? Did you see that ludicrous display last night?" Like that type of shit.
On the opening night of the gala, they hosted an opera.
An opera. And they poached the diva from an opposing theater troupe. That's the type of shit that I like, because that's the type of thing when I think of rich people who have way too much time and money on their hands. That's how they're going to wage warfare. When they're forced to appear civil, anyway. That's the thing, because they'll do other gnarly shit outside of the city, but in the capital where they have to perform, that's it.
So I didn't get a chance to say this, and I don't know if it fits into geography, point of interest, or the capital, but I did want there to be a wine culture.
Oh, you did mention that. Yeah.
I wanted like vineyards and everything to be particularly like it's a bit of affluence, but there's like chateaus out there in the waste or like on the corners of the city of where they can grow stuff. And
okay,
it's also a bit of decadence because it's just like, oh yeah, I need soldiers, I need men to protect this vineyard.
Okay, that's super fucking cool, because now it's like it's a dangerous job to be a wine seller. Like that's the idea, but it's like that wine is the best.
Wine cellar, rum runners, different alcohol that get grown in the waste, because I feel like maybe that's something that's weird about the waste. You like can cultivate things out of this soil that shouldn't be.
Oh, and that would actually kind of make sense so it kind of appeals to their international sense of cuisine, right? Where they like this thing from this country and this thing from this country. Well, they can't really, sell it. They can't really cultivate it. And of course, what will any chef tell you is the key to a good restaurant?
The wine.
No, local, fresh ingredients. But when you talk about chaos soil where you can grow anything,
and it's unique,
and it's specific,
because the terroir.
Yeah, of course. I can. Yeah, now I'm loving this idea of like these just. Oh man,
and also
he's a winemaker. He's a badass, like that type of shit, right?
It's also the fact that kind of like going back to the Wild West. I forget what they were called, but cattle ranchers and everything, when they would do a
Cowboys
cattle drive is what I was thinking of. They have to bring the wine from the area into the Capitol.
Okay, that's so fucking dumb, and I love it.
I know.
I love that shit so much that
Listen,
now we have like a dichotomy between the super fancy and like the cowboy winemakers who are doing like a barrel run. They're doing a barrel run. They're bringing in the casks from the country.
It's not just that, but just going back into the wasteland, post-apocalyptic. I'm picturing now this big rig of wine.
like a cattle drive,
wagon.
but like a barrel run. Like I was saying, you gotta like whoosh. Like they're going to look back at those people like we look back at cowboys.
Yes, because it's not just the fact that they have to go through the dangers of the waste. Not that they just have to go through the dangers of the waste and everything, but also that's expensive shit.
Yes,
bandits want it.
Yeah. Oh my. Oh man. And you're gonna do like. Yeah, that's so fucking fun. That is the dumbest, most amazing shit I've ever heard.
Oh god, I realized in Mad Max and in all those things it was always oil, and this is just wine.
Oh my god! Oh, we're doing Mad Max too! With wine. Oh, that's amazing, and I love it. That's so fucking amazing. Oh, I'm so happy with this. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I did not think I would. I originally went in with wine, but this somehow became Mad Max wine.
Yes, Mad Max / cowboy wine, which is even better somehow. Oh man,
Need whiskey in there somehow.
Well, whiskey comes from corn, doesn't it? So I don't think that's like you can't grow whiskey, Chris.
Chaos soil.
No, it's not coming out in barrels. It's not. You're not like whatever.
It's my story.
Fuck your story. All right. I feel like we've done a really excellent job this episode talking about the Bank of Death. I feel like we've gotten a lot more of their culture down.
Yeah, I always like when we're talking about this and suddenly I really want to do a setting.
Yep.
And now I really just want to just like, guess what you guys are doing? A wine run.
Yeah. Oh, careful. You got grape rustlers up there.
Jesus.
Okay, so we have Wild West / Mad Max wine runners mixed in with Disney gangs in the Capitol. I mean, how fucking fun is this shit? I'm so down. All right, yeah. I think that'll do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we're good there.
Yeah, I'm happy there.
Yeah. All
I really
right.
wish
so,
I had Daniel's input to all of this.
right? Like he'd add some weird sci-fi nerd shit to it. I'm sure.
Oh,
Whatever. Daniel, we miss you.
The fucking wasteland.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. I'm super down for this shit. All right. So folks, that will do it for this episode of Worldbuild with us. We hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, you can go ahead and send us a death threat at worldbuildwithus@gmail.com. Or not. I mean, you can just tell us if you think that, wine and Mad Max kind of mixed together. Yeah, and until next time, remember that we love you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Good night. Or good morning. I don't know when you're listening.